Hey everyone, I'm Sean from Grafana Labs, and today I am super excited to introduce you to GCX. Now, GCX is a CLI that gives your coding agents like Codex, Claude Code, Cursor, Copilot, the list goes on, direct access to your team's production telemetry right from your Grafana stack. Now, I know what you may be thinking right out the gate, which is awesome, another CLI, what makes this so special? And honestly, that is a fair question. But GCX was built for the agentic era we're living in, and there are a few capabilities built into GCX and shipped along with it that are completely changing how your AI agents are able to reason, inference, and investigate real production telemetry issues. And chances are you probably haven't seen some of these features that we're shipping along with it. So in this video, we'll start from scratch, we'll get GCX connected to Grafana, and I will even show you a few of my favorite workflows that I'm using and tips that can make your AI agent dramatically more useful for you. Let's jump in. Awesome, so let's start with installation. This part is actually very straightforward. We'll just go into the Grafana GCX GitHub repo, which is open source, accessible to everyone, totally public. We'll scroll down to installation. Now, depending on which operating system you're on, you're going to go down a different path for installation. If you're on Linux or Mac OS, very easy, just use Homebrew, or you can even use curl. As always, if you're on Windows or Mac or Linux, honestly, this goes for anyone, you can just download the pre-built binary from the releases page. You just click on the releases page here, and then you'll be able to grab the latest version here, download it directly, and then unzip that. Cool. So once we're done with that, let's jump over into our terminal. When we run GCX, you'll see that we get a list of all of our available commands we can run, from alerts to the Grafana assistant, to authentication, to dashboards, to data sources, to log querying, metric querying, trace querying. The list goes on. There are a ton of pieces of Grafana functionality jam-packed into GCX that is accessible to you, as well as all the flags. For example, we have the / agent command, or flag that you can append to your GCX commands. This enables agent mode, JSON output, no color, better error output. So this is more efficient when it comes to tokens. So when we actually talk about connecting GCX to our stack, there's a few ways you can do this. The very manual way of doing this is just GCX auth login. This will kick off an OAuth session into your Grafana Cloud account. However, let's say you're wanting to use some of the predefined skills that GCX has accessible, you can install those. So by just running GCX skills install and then all, you'll see that we've installed 17 skills right into our agents-skills directory. And what's cool about this is all these skills like debug with Grafana, explore data sources, import dashboards, manage dashboards. These are predefined skills that we have built out and packaged with GCX, so you don't have to write them by scratch, right? So if you go to use Claude Code or Cursor or Copilot or Codex, whenever you prompt and say like, hey, I need to investigate something in Grafana, it's going to preload these skills that you've installed into your agent's path. So for example, if we wanted to jump into Claude Code and use the /setup GCX command, this will actually run that / command in Claude Code to be able to set up GCX with your Grafana stack. Now, let's say we wanted to do this on-premise instead. What we can do is we can just jump into Claude Code and say, I want to connect GCX to my on-premise Grafana stack. And what this will do as Claude Code starts to sort of infer is it'll load up that setup GCX skill, similar to the / command, right? It's pretty much just loading it into context here for us. And then you'll see that it'll check the GCX version. It also goes through path B, which is the on-premise setup, path A being Grafana Cloud. So you'll see that GCX is already installed, and it's going to ask what my server URL is, because if I'm running it on-premise, via open source or Grafana Enterprise per se, it'll ask where this is running, right? It could be on localhost 3000. I could have a proxy URL that it's going to. Also my authentication method, right? How do I log into this stack to begin with? Is it through my service account tokens, username, passwords? What context name do we want to give it? And once we do this and submit all this, you'll see that we can actually verify which stacks we have connected. So if you run GCX config view, this will give you all the context you have. So for example, like if I had my Grafana and this was an open source stack, like that context that I give it, that will be here. Now, what I have currently connected, and I can see this by running GCX config current context, is tech content. So it's referencing this context, similar to like what you do when you run kubectl, right? It'll have your context or configuration and know what kubectl is scoped to, like what cluster, for example. And you'll also notice that we have a level of security built into GCX out of the box. So tokens are redacted. Any sensitive information is going to be redacted. So now that we are all set up with GCX and we verified that we're connected, we can start to jump into some of the cool features that GCX has exposed to it. So like I said, we can query our telemetry directly through GCX. So let's run a query, and this is going to be GCX metrics query, and then inside our apostrophes, essentially, we'll have our query that we're running. This is a PromQL query. So essentially what I'm doing here is I want to get the CPU percentage by container. And you'll also notice at the end here, I've appended a few flags. So I'm going to look at the last hour, and then I have this -o graph command. And what this will do is actually generate a real-time graph right in the CLI or right in the terminal, which is really cool, right? But this is like more of a manual way that you would use GCX. Like I said, GCX is built for the agentic era. So let's actually jump into a real use case where I'm going to use GCX to troubleshoot. Okay, so we have been getting some reports from users that our plans page on our application isn't loading. So let's actually jump over into our application to try to figure out what the heck's going on. Now, if I load this up, we can see that everything looks to be loading properly in our app. But when we go to this plans page, that it goes blank completely. And I don't know why that's happening. Like even if I refresh, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. So we need to figure out why the heck that's happening, right? So let's jump into our terminal yet again, and let's kick off a process here with Claude Code to troubleshoot. So we're going to jump into Claude and we're going to say we are experiencing an issue in production where the plans page is not loading anything. Let's troubleshoot using Grafana. So what this is going to do with this very simple prompt is it's going to start inferring and looking at some of the skills that we have accessible through Claude Code. So you're going to see that it actually calls this Grafana debugger skill that we've installed with the predefined skills that come out of the box with GCX. Now I'm going to say don't ask me again for any of these GCX commands for approval, essentially, because I don't really need it. Like I trust it to go do its work with GCX. There's nothing it can really break here. It's just going to be reading telemetry for the most part. So we can see in real time what it's starting to do. It's starting to look at plan services. It's going to start and look at some of the other ones that we have accessible. Like what are the other service names we have, right, in the Cloud Logs data source. So it actually has context into how to look for data sources, what telemetry to look at. We can see it's looking at the chat service now. It's even starting to look at our actual code base, which is nice because we're doing this in Claude Code that has access to our code base. We're going to see it's looking for errors. It's formatting it into JSON. It's looking at the API plans route. It's looking at if there's any exceptions over the last 2 hours to now. It's limiting the output that it's giving. That's going to save on tokens. And we're actually going to look at the end of this investigation, how many tokens it's used in our session, because I am curious to know, hey, how efficient is this actually being? So we can now see that it's looking at the app name front end, which is a step in the right direction, it seems like. So it's starting to cross-reference front-end logs as well. And as it infers, hopefully we get a diagnosis that's accurate, because I think I know what the problem is. Like, I think any any developer might see the issue pretty obviously, but I want to see if GCX and Grafana can sort of troubleshoot this for me without me having to like think too hard about it. Now, my hunch is that it's an ingress issue, and I didn't add the ingress into our for the plans API into our Kubernetes manifest, but I want to see if it can sort of diagnose that for us, just to show its accuracy, right? So it's going to look at traces. We can have it go do that. It's going to try to query our metrics, look at some of the infrastructure. And we can see that it's actually looking at ingress paths as well. And now it's looking at my manifest. I wonder if it identified the issue. It seems like it's doing a really in-depth analysis of our code base as well. So it's looking at real files and seeing maybe where our gaps are. Once again, this is an ingress issue for sure. I'm starting to be very confident in that, which is funny because I just feel like I should have known to add that, but that's also something that I now need to build into my automation workflows to be able to say when I add a new endpoint, to make sure that that's accessible via the ingress. So let's see. Root cause, ingress config missing in the API plans route. The plans page is blank because production front-end ingress has no routing to the API plans. So requests are falling through. Awesome. So it looks at the Pharo logs. We see all 200s to the request, so the backend is not the issue. There's 0 was planned request events that we're logging out through the chat service. All traces terminate at the front end pod, no downstream span to chat service. This is all very indicative that this was a issue with our ingress. So let's just say, let's add that into our ingress and deploy. So this is essentially GCX working its magic, right? It was using all the skills that it has to its disposal, and being able to properly diagnose this issue for us. Which, and I'm just smiling right now because I didn't know if it was going to be able to actually do this for us, but it caught the issue very well. Now I want to know, since we've sort of identified this issue with GCX, like what our usage is in Claude Code. So we can see that this whole investigation with GCX was something maybe this simple. Obviously, there's going to be things that are probably more in depth, more silent that you'll be catching with GCX. But this was $1.70. Took about 360 input tokens to Claude Haiku 4.5, used about 556 input tokens into Opus 4.7. And then not that many tokens overall. Like $1.70 for this is really good. So let's just say only the ingress changed, everything else. Let me verify we're pointing at the right cluster. Confirmed. It applied. Okay, awesome. So we should be good. In a few moments, this will all load up and will be all gravy. Okay, so just to summarize kind of what we've done in this video, we introduced you to GCX. We set it up with our Grafana stack. You can see how that can be done through on-prem and cloud instances with Grafana. On top of that, we installed some out-of-the-box skills that comes with GCX that can be super helpful for you when it comes to troubleshooting, managing dashboards, handling data sources, and so forth. We even troubleshooted an incident in real time that I personally messed up with ingress paths. And yeah, this is just a quick introduction and for you to meet and be comfortable with GCX. We're going to be building more content around GCX and use cases. But thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.